So recently, I've seen a ton of questions in the Discord and in general about which trinkets are good and which are worth chasing. While I covered this briefly in my guide, I figured it was worth going over again, but this time more in depth. So today, we're going to talk about the best trinkets for both Havoc and Vengeance Demon Hunter. Before we get to that though, I put tons of work into my videos, so if you're watching this and not subscribed and enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button. Now enjoy the video. First up, we're going to talk about Havoc. And the way I'm going to structure it is going to be our two best trinkets first, and then moving into some other premium options as you gear. The best two trinkets for Havoc this time around are going to be two raid trinkets, Manic Grief Torch and Whispering Incarnate Icon. These trinkets are honestly just crazy. Starting off with Grief Torch, it's an on-use with a 2-minute CD which channels a ton of fire damage at your target, has a chance for each bolt to hit nearby targets as well. The kicker is that every time a friendly target dies, its cooldown is reduced by 90 seconds, dropping it down to a 30-second CD. This trinket just does so much damage and really is our best in almost every single scenario. The damage it does, again, is just so crazy. The trinket itself drops from the second last boss of the raid, Broodkeeper Diurna, and should be a top priority for you to pick up. Our other trinket, Whispering Incarnate Icon, is a stat stick, which drops from Curel Grim Totem and is a rare drop. This means it drops at a higher eye level compared to other loot from that boss, but is seen less common. This trinket gives DPS a large amount of crit, which by itself is a fairly good thing for Havoc. However, on top of that, the trinket has a chance to give you either Verse or Haste as well, depending on if a tank for Verse or a healer for Haste also has the trinket. I'm 99% sure you need to share a party to get this effect, but even if no one else has this buff, the trinket is quite strong and should be picked up. If everyone else has the buff, so if you have a tank and a healer, this trinket is probably our best one, period. If you don't raid, or just haven't received these trinkets yet, there are definitely some other options that are quite good as well. From the raid, Stormeater's Boon and Decoration of Flame are both decent trinkets for AoE. Stormeater's Boon drops from Dathia the Ascended and is an on-use with a 3-minute CD that turns you into a Storm Elemental for 10 seconds, rooting you, but causing you to deal a ton of AoE damage around you. This trinket is quite strong, but being immobile for 10 seconds is quite a large downside and can really lead to your death if you're not careful. Likewise, mobs can also be moved out of the AoE. For these reasons, it's not fully recommended to play with this trinket, but the damage it does is crazy. The other trinket, Decoration of Flame, is technically a tank trinket, but its damage, especially in AoE, is fairly respectable. It is lower than some other trinkets, but the shield it provides can be quite useful during progression and when doing high keys, and can thus make it very strong. In terms of dungeon trinkets, Havoc has a ton of other options to the two from raid. The top few trinkets for Mythic Plus you're going to want to look into are going to be the Algathar Puzzle Box, the Windscar Whetstone, and Hunger of the Pack. Algathar Puzzle Box is a 3-minute CD on-use trinket with a short cast time, that's roughly 2 seconds, that gives a massive amount of mastery on use. This trinket is good simply because of how much we like mastery, and it's best used lining up with meta before you enter the Essence Break burst window, or using it on pre-pull. Lots of people don't like this trinket simply due to its long cast time, but the power it has is fairly unmatched in terms of stats. This trinket drops from Algathar Academy and M+, and is a good one to pick up. Windscar Whetstone is up next, and oh boy is this a strong trinket. Windscar, or Windscar if you will, is a 2-minute on-use trinket that summons swirling winds around you that pulse a ton of physical damage to enemies over 6 seconds, and also comes with a mastery equip, which honestly is really significantly better and really good for us, as the last time this was around in Shadowlands for time walking, we kind of hated mastery, but now we love it. This trinket drops from Court of Stars Dungeon from M+, and is super powerful, both in single target and AoE, and is a strong option to farm if you don't have raid trinkets yet. Finally, Hunger of the Pack is the last trinket. This trinket looks fairly weak and simple, only having stats and giving a fairly weak speed boost effect. However, the amount of stats it gives is what makes it powerful. This trinket gives a large amount of both Critical Strike and Agility, which are both very valuable for Havoc, and is a good replacement to the Whispering Incarnate Icon if you haven't been able to loot that from raid yet. Realistically, that's it for the strong trinkets I would recommend for Havoc from Raid and M+. The rest of them aren't really that strong for us or have downsides that mean I can't really be comfortable recommending them for you to pick up. The crafted trinkets from Processions as well are also not that good. With that though, we're going to move on to Vengeance and take a look at what's strong for them. So for Vengeance Bis, it's really going to depend on what you want. As a tank, you have the option of taking defensive trinkets, hybrid trinkets, or just pure damage trinkets. So I'll go through the different categories and suggest the best options from amongst them. First, we're going to talk about defensive trinkets, which are trinkets that purely have defensive benefit. Realistically, there aren't too many pure defensive trinkets worth talking about from the current season. However, there's a very powerful defensive trinket from the Brackenhide Hollow M0 dungeon, specifically from the tree boss Treemouth. This trinket, Treemouth's Festering Splinter, is an on-use that deals damage to you and then creates a shield, absorbing 50% of damage taken up to a certain value. While this trinket is a lower eye level than everything else, it is one of the best pure defensive trinkets available, having a very reliable shield on a 1.3 minute cooldown. So if you need someone to survive, you can consider picking this up. Moving over to hybrid trinkets now, these offer some form of defensive benefit while also allowing for some offense, and there are a ton that are super useful for vengeance. The first, and probably the best, is going to be the All Totem of the Master, which drops from Kira Grim Totem in the raid. This trinket is a 30-second ICD, which triggers when you dodge or parry, that deals a burst of damage to all targets and also triggers an effect from one of the 4 elements and cycles through them. Fire leaves a small dot on any target hit, Air grants you a haste buff for 10 seconds, Earth grants you armor for 10 seconds, and Ice grants a hot. This trinket is overall quite strong, as each of the 4 buffs is actually pretty powerful and is a great pickup for vengeance. Next, we have Windswept Pages, which is a trinket that drops from Temple of the Jade Serpent in Mythic Plus. This trinket is just simply a passive haste proc. Not too much to say here. Haste is our best stat, and providing your best stat fairly reliably is always going to be good. Noka Defensive Dungeon drops 2 pretty good trinkets as well, Bottle of Spiraling Winds and Grandest Enduring Scale. Spiraling Winds is a haste equip with a proc that stacks agility, ramping up and lasting for 25 seconds. This is a pretty strong trinket, as both agility and the haste are very nice to have, giving you a nice passive, defensive, and offensive bonus. Grandest Scale, on the other hand, procs an absorb shield that also grants armor, and when broken does decent enough damage to those around you. This trinket is strong and has more of a tangible impact on your tankiness, since you can actually see the shield come out and have your health not move for a second, as opposed to just gaining passive stats like some of these other trinkets. The final hybrid trinket is going to be the Whispering Incarnate Icon. It's the last of the trinkets in this category and provides passive stats, which as a tank gives you Verse, while also having a chance to grant haste and or crit if you have a healer for haste, or a DPS for crit in your group that also has the trinket. The trinket itself is strong and is probably the best option if you have both a healer and a DPS with it, but otherwise we'll lose out to some of our other hybrid options. Finally, we come to pure damage trinkets, of which I'm just going to recommend the one because of how powerful it is. The best option, and if you've been watching the video, you're not going to be surprised, is Manic Grief Torch. This drops from Broodkeeper Diurna in the raid, and does so much damage it's hard to pass up on. It's a 2-minute CD with a 2-second channel that blasts your target and other targets nearby, and has a CD reduced by 90 seconds whenever an ally dies. This trinket does so much damage and should be sought after if you don't need defensive trinkets. There are 2 other options that aren't bad from the raid, that being Storm Eater's Boon and Controlled Current Technique, the first from Dathia Ascended, the second from Kiral Grim Totem, but realistically the damage they do, while it is good, it's just less than Grief Torch, but they're decent trinkets overall, so if you want an offensive trinket and you haven't picked up your Grief Torch yet, you can consider using those. So those are the good trinkets for both Havoc Demon Hunter and Vengeance Demon Hunter. Of course, the best way to figure out what's good for you is going to be simming yourself using something like raid bots, and just keep checking on the trinkets you have to see what's best in terms of damage. For tanks, tankiness isn't something you can sim, so just kind of use whatever you think looks best from what you have. Of course, try and go off of my little list here, but if you can't, do whatever helps you survive if you have trouble surviving. Hopefully this helped give you a quick guide, even though, some of those things weren't there. If there's a trinket I didn't mention, it's probably not worth chasing over these other options. If you want to pick up some trinket I didn't talk about because you find it fun, go ahead, knock yourselves out. But realistically, these are going to be your best options. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments down below which trinket is your favorite. I personally love Grief Torch. It's just so fun to push it and watch health drop. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Consider dropping a sub. Thanks for watching the video. I'll have more content coming soon. So with that, I'll see you guys around. Peace.